Hello everybody, and welcome to 2025. And it is that time of year once again where I take every single film I saw from the previous year and rank them from my least favorite all the way to my favorite. And of course, the rules and criteria of this list are as followed. The first rule is each film had to have been seen by me in a movie theater. No streaming exclusive movies, and no movies I flat out couldn't go see because my theater decided to not play them. No joke, The Substance is not on this list. I don't know why, but my theater just decided to not play it. Second rule, this list is based around my personal enjoyment, but again, quality is still definitely a factor. Not much of a factor, but a factor. And that kinda ties into the third rule. This is not a ranking of the worst to the best, but that will definitely speak for itself very soon. I will admit I did not get to see as many films in 2024 as I did in 2023, mainly because I have the immune system of someone who'd be dead at 35 in the 1800s. I really don't know what that was all about. I just got sick. It wasn't anything, but I just got sick. So I only saw 58 movies this year, and trust me, I hate that number as much as you do. But if there was one thing 2024 was, it was the year of the popcorn bucket, as seen by my little collection back there. When we get to each respective movie, I will bring the popcorn bucket up and talk about it a little bit. And there might be a little surprise in them too. And one more thing before we get the countdown going. Huge shout out to Gail Fox on Blue Sky for the amazing thumbnail. She knocked it out of the park once again. I love her work. But without further ado, let's get this countdown going with number 58. Coming in at the bottom of the list at number 58 is Madame Web. It is just so pathetic that Sony released this to the masses and thought, oh, Marvel fans are stupid, they'll eat this up. Because I can guarantee you that was the thought process. This is Sony doing what Sony does best with the Spider-Man rights. By that I mean taking the character they just so happen to have the rights to and squeezing a pathetic film out from it. To Dakota Johnson and all the other actresses in the film, they are the least of its troubles. The writing, garbage. The story, all over the place. The action, boring as sin. It's the kind of comic book movie I really thought we've moved past. But no, Sony isn't done butchering the good name of Marvel they have. Because they have two other movies on this countdown, and we'll get to them when we get to them. At number 57 is The Crow. So you're telling me he has Wolverine's powers, Spawn's origin, and Batman's edge? He's just comic book sloppy seconds? And with this film, hardly any of the redeeming qualities. This film is an absolute bore, but at the same time, a laughably edgy mess. The amount of times Bill Skarsgård goes out and mopes in the rain in this movie is absolutely insane. And to add insult to injury, it is a boring revenge movie with an equally as boring love story. But I think the most insulting part is when the film decides to actually be awesome for like 5 minutes near the end. Why couldn't the whole movie be like that? You might have actually made something worthwhile had that been the case. Instead, this ended up being one of the many, many flops from Lionsgate in 2024. At number 56, we have Joker Folie Deux. Warner Brothers really flew too close to the sun on this one. Remember, kids, not every movie needs a sequel. Case in point, this. This is a pretentious as hell movie that is a boring chore to watch. This is a film made simply to piss off the fans of Batman. And honestly, fans of the first Joker movie too. I honestly couldn't tell you who this movie was made for, other than people who just hate comic book media. Joaquin Phoenix is still good, and for what it's worth, so is Lady Gaga. Even if this is the most bastardized version of Harley Quinn one could make. But the horrible music numbers, the atrocious story, and the fact that this is probably made by someone who hates comic books really makes this one of the worst comic book movies of all time. At number 55 is Smile 2. I tried to give this a shot. I really did. If you don't remember, Smile was my second least favorite film of 2022. So I really wasn't looking forward to this one. But I knew I had to give it a second chance. Maybe I'll come out of this one liking it a lot more. Clearly not. This is more obnoxious than it is scary. The smiling thing is one of the lamest things I've ever seen a horror movie do. And the few seconds of the actually really cool monster of the film doesn't make this worth it. It's just a boring jump scare fest of a movie. It's like any time the movie was getting to a low point, they threw in a jump scare like you're jingling keys to someone. Hell, the entire movie is almost the exact same thing as the first film too. Even down to a fake salvation. Naomi Scott is good in the movie, but that's about as far as my positives go. I get it, the movie's about mental illness, but it really sucks about taking it seriously. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't particularly care for movies that treat mental illness like a literal death sentence. I am going to die peacefully one day, and then the next day, everyone online is going to be talking about how overrated these movies were. And I'm going to be in the afterlife going, I told you so! I just can't get into these movies. I'm really sorry. Before we get to number 54, I have to say something. In all of these yearly countdown movies, I always have like one movie that I feel like sticks out like a sore thumb in it. A movie that makes me look like a fool for having seen it in a movie theater. And to make matters worse, I didn't hit the 60 mark like I wanted to, and I didn't review Harold and the Purple Crayon. This is going to be the biggest movie for every kindergartner in America. That is, if this was 2003. This is a terrible kids movie, and I don't use that term lightly. This is a kids movie. Zachary Levi is doing the bare minimum in what is another man-child role for him. Imagine Shazam, but anything remotely likable about him as Shazam is gone. But would you believe that this isn't the film's worst crime? For a movie that is about the power of imagination, it is insanely unimaginative. It's like they didn't even try. They followed Zachary Levi around with a camera and made a movie about it. That's all the movie is, almost. It got maybe one good laugh out of me, but kids and families alike deserve far better than this. By the way, when I went to go see this, they gave me 3 purple crayons. 3 purple crayons to maybe write a better movie. You know, I'll tell you, if I was a kid and I was given 3 purple crayons, I'd be a little annoyed. At number 53 is Kraven the Hunter. Welcome back, Sony. Listen, I'll give the movie credit for being just barely better than Morbius and Madam Web. That's about it. That is owed mainly to Aaron Taylor-Johnson being a pretty good lead and maybe a minute's worth of pretty solid action. But other than that, everything I said about Madam Web pertains to this film too. Horrible writing, terrible CGI, a boring story, awful acting throughout the film. Everything just sucks. And don't even get me started on the Rhino in this movie. It is laughably bad. Well, Sony Marvel has one more movie on this countdown. Let's see where it ends up. At number 52 is The Watchers. Yeah, this is definitely a movie that released in 2024. Now, I don't like bagging on a directorial debut, but I gotta do what I gotta do. This was boring. And honestly, there isn't really much to the film that stuck out to me, both in a positive or negative way. It's just kind of the bare minimum of a movie. It is the most meh of a movie I could have seen this year. It's nothing horrible, but it's also nothing memorable either. I mean, what else do I expect? It's a nepotism movie. M. Night Shyamalan produced this film for his daughter to direct. But the movie is barely mid. At number 51 is Borderlands. Now I tell you, I feel like a damn fool. I really expected this film to be much better than people were expecting. Eli Roth has really surprised me of late with films like A House with a Clock in Its Walls and Thanksgiving. But I shouldn't get too excited when history's greatest monster, Avi Arad, is attached to it. Yeah, almost everything he touches turns to garbage. One of the big things wrong about this film is simply the rating. This is a famously M-rated game series, so obviously we have to turn it PG-13, or else we're not gonna get the kids to go see it. So any form of violence or the raunchy, in-your-face nature of the games is replaced with poop and pee jokes. Then there is some awful casting decisions like Jack Black as Claptrap, who just isn't funny. There's like one good shootout scene and a few jokes that did make me laugh in a juvenile kind of way, but I really feel schmeckeldorfed with this movie. This movie did teach me a valuable lesson. Don't buy movie theater popcorn buckets or cups before the movie comes out, or else you're stuck with them. At least it's part of the cinema collection. I think out of all of my popcorn buckets and cups, these are the only two that say cinema collection on it. That's hilarious. Number 50 has the honor of being my favorite and my least favorite film at the same time, The Beekeeper. Yeah, I was extremely disappointed with this one. It's definitely one of those ordinary guys, actually a badass kind of movies, but I just don't think it works. Jason Statham is a good action guy, but not for a movie like this. We already know he's going to be a badass, and there's nothing to be surprised about there. But that is far from what disappointed me with this movie. A sizable portion of this movie is about these two FBI detectives who are obnoxious. Anytime the movie was about to get interesting, it takes a screeching halt and focuses on these two goobers. They have what Twitter likes to call MCU dialogue. MCU dialogue's not this bad. I was so annoyed every time these characters were on screen. Had this film mostly followed Jason Statham, it definitely would have been higher. But those two detectives drug this movie down so hard for me. At number 49 is Bob Marley, One Love. Now this does the exact bare minimum any musician biopic needs to do. It's definitely a film that feels a bit half-baked. The performances are good, albeit rather hard to understand in some scenes, and the story is solid, or at least it would be if it wasn't being sped-run. This whole film, the entire 107 minutes of it, just marks the important moments of Bob Marley's life because it feels like they need to. Making a movie that is so fast it almost feels like a fever dream. And not even because I was high. Although I have to admit, I think all 58 of these movies would be much better if I was. Number 48 is Despicable Me 4. Now, I don't particularly care for the Minions, but I don't have anything against the Despicable Me movies. Or at least I didn't until this one. This movie felt like I was watching a series of TikToks, and the worst part is, I genuinely believe that was the idea. This film is just a series of short stories that make up the bare minimum of a real story come the end of the film. The animation is great, and there are some funny jokes, but it definitely feels as if they're running out of mileage creatively with these films. But they keep making money, so what are you gonna do? Well, we've already talked about his daughter's movie, so let's talk about his, because at number 47 is Trap. M. Night Shyamalan brings us a film with the worst killer in film history. Yeah, The Butcher doesn't exactly do much of that in this movie. He is a pretty great escape artist, though. I will have to give him that. If you can't tell, I really wasn't feeling this one. The setup of the film is brilliant, and Josh Hartnett is great. But when I realized the film wasn't going to get any more interesting than the basic premise, I kinda just checked out. There really isn't much of interest happening throughout this movie. They even leave the concert way earlier than I expected them to. Oh, and speaking of the concert, I found out that this film was also a vehicle for M. Night Shyamalan's other daughter's music career. That really has no bearing on whether or not I enjoyed the movie or not, but it definitely made me go, At number 46, continuing the trend of films that have good ideas but run out of them pretty quickly, we have ISS. This film actually has a pretty cool idea. What if the Americans and the Russians aboard the International Space Station were at war? But that cool idea is about as far as they go. The US versus Russia plotline is definitely a hot button issue, when is it not? But they didn't add much to it to flesh it out. I suppose that adds to the immersion since the astronauts don't know a thing either, maybe? That's definitely my guess. There kind of came a point in this film where it was just two characters having a little tussle in zero gravity. And it was... At number 45 is Imaginary. Now, this movie is an enigma. For the first 2 acts of this movie, nothing really interesting happens. It's a relatively mundane movie. But then the 3rd act happened where my attention just skyrocketed. Where was this the rest of the movie? The 3rd act of this movie has this brilliant idea and I was into it. It's not perfect, but a huge improvement over the first 2 acts. I honestly would not be against seeing them make a sequel to this and flesh out that idea more. I really liked it. This film is still not particularly good, but the potential is definitely there. Number 44 is Red 1. Now I'll admit, I was expecting this to be much worse. But luckily, it's not. It's an alright Christmas action movie. This is yet another film with a fun idea, but it doesn't get explored too much. Most of these ideas include holiday figures. But once they go and visit Krampus, they just kind of stop expanding on that altogether. It's just kind of a bare bones action movie with Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans. There really isn't much to say about it. Except this wasn't a sequel to Red Notice. Remember that movie? You do now. Number 43 is Argylle. Now this movie is just absurd. In every possible conceivable way, this film is absurd. There are parts of the absurdity I kind of enjoyed and found quite funny. Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell are great leads, and Matthew Vaughn can still cook with some good action and visuals in a PG-13 setting. However, and this is something that is impossible to overlook, this film can hardly go 10 minutes without a big twist. I was beginning to find myself extremely annoyed with it, but eventually came around to enjoying it because it felt like it was part of the joke. However, this movie is so much of a mess, I couldn't tell you if that was the intention or not. But it made me laugh, so congratulations movie, you get a point. Number 42 is The Bike Riders. Yeah, this definitely wasn't a movie made for me. And I acknowledge that. Yeah, I just kind of found this movie to be a bit of a slog, especially because it's also an interview movie. I don't want to use the term mockumentary because it definitely takes everything seriously, but they're interviewing people who are not actually the people who are in the movie. But I really just couldn't get into the interview portions of this movie at all. Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and Tom Hardy are all good in the film, but really there isn't much to this that makes me want to watch it again at all. At number 41 is Terrifier 3. I'll say this. This is more of an endurance test than it is an actual movie. I am definitely falling off the hype train for these movies. I actually really enjoyed 2. I thought it was a solid slasher film, but this is a stereotypical gore porn film almost through and through. This film is carried almost entirely by Art the Clown's antics, and I'm not talking about his brutal actions. David Howard Thornton is a mastermind when it comes to physical comedy. I could watch a Mr. Bean style movie with this character and him not kill a single person. He is that good. There just kind of came a point with the violence in this movie where I was just kind of checking out. Ironic, I know, especially with one kill near the very end. If you know, you know. Hey, I can't fault the movie entirely. It knows its audience and it knows its job. But maybe it knows its job too well? At number 40 is Maxine. As someone who wasn't the biggest fan of X and Pearl, I really wasn't expecting too much from this film, but I kind of dug it. I love the 80s Hollywood setting, the slasher mystery, and most of all, Mia Goth's incredible performance. I can definitely see why people who like X and Pearl wouldn't like this, as it might be a bit too normie friendly, but I consider myself a horror film normie, so I liked it. At number 39 is the prequel everyone has always wanted to see, Mufasa: The Lion King. I say that sarcastically, but if you were really wanting a prequel to The Lion King, well, there you go. This is substantially better than the 2019 remake, but it still falls flat in one key area. And that's the fact that it's just kind of boring to look at. There are a lot of great aspects to the film, the voice acting, the story, the music, but on the flip side, it's just so dull visually. And not because the visuals are bad. The effects are fantastic. The original Lion King is anything but dull. This definitely did better in terms of the character animations, but the actual lions still feel a bit stilted. I don't like complaining about good visual effects in movies, but when they're this good, it kind of throws it into an uncanny valley kind of thing. I will say this, if you watch the movie with your eyes closed, you're gonna enjoy it a little bit more. Because the musical numbers you can animate in your head are still probably better than whatever this film has. Number 38 is Lisa Frankenstein. This was actually a solid dark rom-com, something I didn't know I needed in my life. Kathryn Newton and Cole Sprouse are a great duo in this film. It's the aesthetic of the film that makes it for me. This dark and warped story taking place in this super nice little town with its fair share of happy and preppy personalities is just super funny to me. It definitely starts slow and goes in a direction I don't think the trailers did justice to, but I just enjoyed this. At number 37 is the Garfield movie. I'm going to be pretty blunt here and say it is a Garfield movie. Chris Pratt was far and away my top choice for the iconic cat, but he definitely made the role his own, even nailing the dry humor pretty well in certain scenes. The father and son story done in the film is serviceable at best, but the animation has Garfield's world looking the best it ever has in 3D. And there is even some solid slapstick, something I am quite picky about. Again, it's a Garfield movie. It's cute, does its job. I can't get myself to hate it. It's alright. Plus, it gave me this. Do you want to take popcorn from Garfield while he's giving you the doomy eyes? Come on, take some popcorn. You know you want some. At number 36 is Lord of the Rings: War for the Rohirrim. I sincerely hope I'm pronouncing that right. I genuinely don't know if I am. And if that wasn't a clear sign, I am far from a Lord of the Rings nerd. I don't have really anything against it, it's just kind of passed me by, but I was interested in seeing this one. I am a sucker for 2D animation in theaters, but one that is more adult-oriented? Sign me the hell up. Now this film is what I imagine we all thought Pixar's Brave was going to be in 2012. An awesome red-headed heroine taking back her kingdom? Hell yeah! The action scenes are pretty freaking awesome, but the scenes where characters are talking to one another feels extremely stilted. I liked the characters and the conflict they were facing too. It was extremely engaging. Although, and this is definitely because I am far from a Lord of the Rings fan, I didn't feel like it needed to be attached to the franchise. And anytime this film tries to shoehorn in other Lord of the Rings references within this film, it definitely feels a bit forced. I understand a movie titled War for the Rohirrim wouldn't sell, but neither did this one, so what do you know? Well, here we are, Sony. Number 35, Venom: The Last Dance. I realize I have already spent 2 portions of this video taking a huge dump on Sony Marvel movies. Why is this as high as it is? Tom Hardy and Venom are fantastic in these movies. Venom is so much fun in these films. I love his animation and his newfound admiration for humans, or at least Eddie Brock. Plus, Tom Hardy is just as crazy in the role as he was in the past. If the other Sony Marvel movies managed to at least capture an entertaining lead character, They would have had something, but they don't. However, when this film is not focused on Eddie and Venom, it is the same garbage you've come to expect from Sony Marvel. A nonsensical plot with mediocre acting with sequel bait that will never happen. I really hate that we gave Sony the idea that we wanted more Marvel movies from them, when in reality, we just liked Tom Hardy as Venom. We need to kick ourselves in the ass for that. So here's a funny story. When I saw this film, I got head. Venoms. Sounds like there's something in his head. It's a movie code. A movie code for the first Venom movie. So if you're looking to watch the first Venom again, please, by all means, take this code. It is first come, first serve, sadly. But be sure to keep an eye out for other codes in this video. Number 34 is The Apprentice, and I'm going to be brutally honest here and say I don't want to talk about this movie any more than I have to. It's good. You should watch it. Sebastian Stan's great. Jeremy Strong's great. The whole movie's great. That's it. Moving on. Partying like it's 1999 at number 33 is Y2K. This definitely seemed like my kind of movie, and it definitely was for the most part. I can't explain it, but I am a sucker for the Y2K trope. The Y2K episodes of Family Guy, King of the Hill, The Simpsons, I just love them. I just think it's a funny period of time, especially when it wasn't that long ago. However, this film definitely ran out of ideas kind of quickly. Once the New Year's Party Massacre happens, it's not as good. Mainly because the Phrygian actor I would have liked to have seen more of in the film. The film is still funny and I liked it overall, but not as much as I would have liked to. Now, going back to what I said about movies that stick out like sore thumbs, number 32 is the best Christmas pageant ever. This definitely wasn't a movie I'd go see if I was a regular moviegoer, but a regular moviegoer I am not. This was cute though, really no other way to put it. It's sappy, but it's just as heartwarming as some of the Christmas classics we know and love. But what I really appreciated about the film and respected about it was that it wasn't an obnoxious religious film. It wasn't a film that was so far up its own ass it became hypocritical. There aren't many Christianity movies nowadays that I think Jesus himself would be cool with, but this is definitely one of them. Again, not a movie I would see normally, but I'm glad I did. It was alright. Number 31 is Kung Fu Panda 4. Now, if you can believe it, I had to binge watch all of the Kung Fu Panda movies because I hadn't seen the first one even since 2008, and I never saw 2 or 3. I don't know why it took me so long because 2 is one of the best films DreamWorks has ever made. And while this definitely isn't as good as 1, 2, or 3, it's still a lot of fun. It is far and away the worst DreamWorks has to offer, I'll tell you that much. Jack Black is as iconic as always as Po, and I'm into the way the story is going, seeing Po become a teacher of sorts. However, the animation of the film definitely seems like a step down, even in comparison to the original in 2008. I was really hoping we'd get a Kung Fu Panda movie that looked as good as the Puss in Boots sequel that no one wanted, but everyone loves. But the movie also did make me laugh a whole lot, and it did grace us with the Tenacious D cover of Hit Me Baby One More Time. I would honestly go as far as to say that cover makes this film worth it, but keep in mind, I am far from a music critic. My taste in music is horrible. Going from one movie that looked made for TV to one that literally was, at number 30 is Moana 2. Now, I'm going to be completely honest here and say I enjoyed this film as much as I did the first Moana, but bear in mind, I don't love Moana like some other people do. I like the first Moana a whole lot, and I thought this was alright too. It's a fun adventure across the ocean with 2 of Disney's best leading duos. I honestly don't see the leftover TV elements like some other people do, I guess. Moana and Maui are still really fun and likable characters, the animation's still great, and the songs are alright. The songs are definitely the weakest part of this film, but also I really enjoyed Maui's new song. I gotta be fair there. I really, really liked that one. At number 29 is The Killer's Game. Amongst all of Lionsgate's embarrassing bombs this year, this is one I kind of wish did a little bit better. It's a solid action film starring Dave Bautista. There really isn't much more I could ask for. The story's funny, and the cast of the other hitmen in the film are quite fun too. This may be sacrilegious to say, but it almost felt like an Edgar Wright movie at times. Definitely not as well written on the grand scheme of things, but there are a lot of jokes that I feel like he would come up with. Specifically the joke, and I mean singular joke, around the Irish bounty hunters. They did not need another joke because the one joke they got is perfect. At number 28 is Fly Me to the Moon, a movie that some people dubbed a fake movie, a movie that you would see in a sitcom on TV. And I won't lie, the marketing definitely gave me that vibe too, but it's honestly not a bad little film. It's actually a really clever and funny romantic comedy. Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum are a fun duo, and the story's take on the faking of the moon landing is brilliant. It was amongst one of the biggest surprises of the year to me. I really enjoyed it. Number 27 is If. I was already a fan of his prior to this film, but John Krasinski's directing skills really shined here. I was extremely interested to see how he would do a family-oriented movie, and I think he did an extremely good job. I love the angle the film takes with the imaginary friends, going in a direction that doesn't feel like a direct ripoff of Foster's Home by the end of it. Ryan Reynolds and Cailey Fleming are a delightful duo in this film, and the stacked voice cast for the Ifs are great too. It's a film I feel like adults are going to enjoy far more than kids do, and I really feel like that was the intention. Number 26 is A Complete Unknown. Would you believe me if I said I knew even less about Bob Dylan than I did Bob Marley? I'm just grateful Bob Dylan has a substantially better biopic. Timothée Chalamet is great as Bob Dylan, and James Mangold tells the story of the American music icon extremely well. It definitely hits that Lifetime speed run button that so many other biopics do, leading it to almost feel too long for its own good. But the performances and the story really carry it, even if it doesn't push the envelope too much. At number 25 is Wicked. I tell you, I had no clue whatsoever what to expect with this movie, and me enjoying it as much as I did definitely wasn't one of them. This is a fun and wonderful way to return to the world of Oz. It's an egregiously fun musical, because if it wasn't, it would be a crime. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are great as Elphaba and Glinda respectively, and I just always get a kick out of seeing Jeff Goldblum in anything. I'm honestly really surprised how excited I am for part 2 later this year. At number 24 is a movie that even I'm conflicted to have this high, Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. On one hand, it's the Ghostbusters movie I've wanted since I was 9. A film seeing new and old faces teaming up to bust some ghosts. It's a great time if you want that. On the other hand, I really wanted a Ghostbusters film that felt like a story straight out of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. We almost got that with the film's villain, who is really cool, pun intended. But instead, this film continues the Ghostbusters tradition of them talking about how bad it would be if this ghost was to get out for the entirety of the film, only for him to, oh no, he got out. And maybe only the last 20 minutes of the movie is the quote-unquote Frozen Empire. It's a movie I definitely enjoyed on a nostalgic level, I will be completely candid about that, but it's also a movie I didn't enjoy as much as I would have liked to, as much as I felt like I was led to believe from the trailers. Man, this being as high as it is really proves that my ranking system is Number 23 is Monkey Man. Now, this is another film that I felt disappointed by because I felt like I was getting a different movie, but unlike the previous movie, I genuinely liked what we got instead. For Dave Patel's directorial debut, this is one hell of a way to start. He even stars in the film too, which is just another plus. This is a fantastic action film about a guy sticking up for the little people of India, and how a government run by shitty people makes the life for those marginalized much more, well, shitty. Honestly, I can see why this film was having such a hard time finding a distributor, but thank you, based Jordan Peele, for giving this film the theatrical release it deserved. Number 22 is Bad Boys: Ride or Die. This is the kind of buddy cop action comedy we just don't get anymore. This film is as funny as it is action-packed. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are a perfect on-screen duo. Truly some comedic brilliance. And directors Adil and Bilal are fantastic behind the camera. The amount of style and energy they give the action in this film is downright incredible. It makes it feel far from a traditional buddy cop movie. Nothing in this movie makes me think their Batgirl movie would have been unwatchable. Warner Brothers. At number 21 is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, I gotta admit, I am not the biggest Guy Ritchie fan. His non-linear storytelling British crime stuff just really isn't my cup of tea. But you know what is? Superman punching Nazis. Because man, he suckered me in with this one. This one rocks. This film tells the very real story of the real world Inglourious Bastards, led by the real world James Bond. And it's pretty freaking awesome. The entire cast is great, and Guy Ritchie turns the real world figures into some pretty cool and interesting action heroes. It's not a big epic action film where the characters are doing things beyond realistic, mainly because this is something that really happened. Honestly, there isn't much to say about this film other than the fact that it rocks. But I'm just a sucker for Nazi killing movies. It really hits. Hits you right here. Look at your face. You probably thought I was gonna do it, didn't you? I wasn't gonna do it. Who do you take me for? The dumbest smart man alive? At number 20 is Longlegs. One of my favorite things is when a movie that isn't necessarily on my radar comes out and it's this good. This is one of the most unique serial killer dramas we've gotten in a long time. It's got a compelling mystery, some incredibly immersive cinematography, and it's rightfully creepy and spine-tingling. It's definitely more crime drama than horror, but that doesn't mean it doesn't get the anxiety going. A lot of that is owed to Nicolas Cage as the titular Longlegs. Osgood Perkins definitely made something special here, and I am definitely a fan. Number 19 is Twisters. Now, this is a disaster movie that is up my tornado alley. Literally, I live in Arkansas. This film takes what worked so well with the original Twister and upgrades it. Upgrades it with today's technology, making something that is just as impactful as the original was in the 90s. Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell make for a great duo, and the tornado scenes are as exciting as they are pretty terrifying, actually. Even when they are leaning more silly, they manage to capture the terror these forces of nature bring to Middle America. I suppose it had no business being directly tied to the original film, but also the simple addition of the S to the title is a fun sequel trope, so I forgive it. Pre-recorded from Arkansas, it's number 18, Saturday Night. Now, I am far from an avid watcher of Saturday Night Live. I personally have better things to do on my Saturday nights, like playing Marvel Rivals. That game is freaking awesome. But a movie about the hectic production of the very first episode definitely had my attention, and it paid off. This is a fantastic comedy, one that excellently tells the story of the 90 minutes prior to SNL's first show. And of course, the actors playing these iconic SNL alumni are solid too. This film also has one of my favorite endings of any movie this year. I could not have picked a better spot to end this movie. Truly a stroke of genius from Jason Reitman's part. Great movie. Number 17 is the long-awaited sequel to the Tim Burton classic Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Something I'm kind of a sucker for is seeing directors take a film they made in the 80s and 90s and make a sequel to it, fully realizing the potential with today's technology. And that's almost exactly what I feel like Tim Burton does here. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, and Winona Ryder take this long-awaited sequel and put their all into it. It's honestly the perfect sequel you could make for Beetlejuice. The story is definitely all over the place, but for some reason, I kinda dig the movie being a little hectic. It kind of added to the zaniness, I feel. Michael Keaton also blesses us with one of the best PG-13 F-bombs in film history. Easily the best one of the year. And with a great cast of supporting actors like Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe, this makes it one of Tim Burton's most entertaining films in a long time. I am more than supportive of a third film as long as they title it Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. That is all I ask. Oh boy, I feel like this one's gonna raise some hell for not being in the top 10, but here we go. At number 16 is Dune Part 2. Now, I'll admit, I didn't really buy into the Dune hype in 2021. I thought it was good, I really did, and I was excited to see where it went. I just wasn't in on it, like so many other people were. But to say I wasn't excited for Part 2 would definitely be an understatement. And this film really made what I felt to be the heavy-handed lore dump of the first film worth it in almost every way. The story is solid, the performances are top-notch, and the effects and cinematography are phenomenal. I will admit there are some lore aspects I just can't get into, mainly the Ben and Jerry's or whatever the hell they're called. But aside from that, Paul Atreides' story is solid and frighteningly realistic. And also, a lot of the characters in the film are pretty cool too. I am mainly talking about Austin Butler's character. He was rad. But again, I'm still not head over heels in love with the Dune world. I like the films a whole lot and I love certain aspects of them, but there's just something about it that isn't grabbing me. Blade Runner 2049 is still Denis Villeneuve's best film. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or not. I just really wanted to say it. But do you want to know the best part about Dune 2? This monstrosity right here. Isn't nature just beautiful? Don't you see that mouth and don't you just want to stick your hand in it and like... Oh, what's this? It's another code for Black Panther. Enjoy. From one sand dune to another, at number 15 is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Mad Max Fury Road was always going to be a hard film to top, which is why I'm glad this film didn't try, and that is a good thing. This makes for a perfect film to pair alongside the action-packed masterpiece that is Fury Road. Anya Taylor-Joy is great as the young Furiosa, and Chris Hemsworth perfectly plays the film's villain, Lord Dementus. It's definitely more story-heavy than Fury Road, no doubt about that, but the story is compelling and engaging. And Furiosa's origin is told so well. This is why I think it makes for such a great pairing piece to Fury Road. I will say though, I still freaking hate the name A Mad Max Saga. At least these franchise-reminding titles can't get any dumber, right? This is a joke, right? That title's a joke, right? At number 14 is Godzilla x Kong, A New Empire. I really gotta hand it to the MonsterVerse for being the only cinematic universe that isn't called the MCU to find its place amongst the movie-going audience. It knows what the people want, and what they want is giant monsters. And hey, I'm not complaining. They really let Kong shine as a leading character in this film, and he is perfect for it. Godzilla takes a back seat, but when he needs to make his presence known, he will. The new original kaijus are pretty cool too. Scar King, for example, is just an asshole, but he's great. I didn't even mind the human characters that much in this movie. I will say this movie had a bit of a disadvantage coming out just a few months after the masterpiece that was Godzilla Minus One, but when you remember that Godzilla's tone has changed drastically within its 70 years, you learn to appreciate each version as its own thing. I just really like seeing giant monsters fight each other. It's fun and it fuels my inner child. At number 13 is Alien Romulus. Wait, are you telling me that Disney, of all studios, gave us the best Alien film since 1986? Yeah, they did. Because man, did this rip. Fede Alvarez takes this franchise back to its horrifying claustrophobic roots, and I couldn't be more grateful. The xenomorphs haven't looked better, and this is owed a lot to the amazing practical effects of the film. The entire cast is great, but Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson are definitely the film's standout to me, but I gotta give Isabella Merced a special shout out for the best scream of 2024. I do have one gripe, and it's more of an ethical morality thing, and if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That being in the movie definitely kept it out of my top 10. But other than that complaint, I need more of this movie. Stat, Disney. I also got head during this movie, too. The Xenomorphs. Are there any goodies inside this one? Oh, another code for Alien Romulus. Please enjoy. You know, I just thought of something I've never tried. At number 12 is Abigail. This has got to be one of the funniest horror comedies I've seen in a long time. It balances both tones extremely well. The entire cast is great. Kathryn Newton can absolutely destroy me, and I would be grateful, but the biggest standout is Alicia Weir as Abigail. She kills it in almost every scene she's in and is clearly having a blast. Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett are one hell of a directing duo, and I hope they continue making some great horror comedies like this in the future. I'm really a big fan. At number 11 is a movie that, again, wasn't on my radar at all until I saw it at the theater, A Real Pain. I didn't really know what to expect with this film other than a road trip comedy directed by Jesse Eisenberg. But what I didn't expect was to love it as much as I did. This is a perfect dramedy. Two great performances from Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, and a wonderful story about family and heritage. As someone whose cousins were the closest thing I had to brothers growing up, it's a film that will really help you appreciate them more. Jesse Eisenberg made something real special here. Kicking off the top 10 is Gladiator 2. Ridley Scott made a great action film, one that is also a great sequel to one of his best movies. I love our new lead gladiator, played excellently by Paul Mescal, and the supporting cast is super too. Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, and most importantly Denzel Washington are all awesome. Historical accuracy be damned. Ridley Scott wanted to make an awesome action film set in ancient Rome, and man, he definitely delivered. And also, the Colosseum bucket is definitely one of my favorites for this year. It's just so neat. And it also has another code. This one's for Mission Impossible Fallout, my favorite Mission Impossible movie, so please enjoy. Rolling on out at number 9 is Transformers 1. Now this is what I call a Transformers movie. The marketing of the film did not do it justice, because this is an absolute triumph of the franchise. It's the perfect origin film for Optimus Prime and Megatron. And Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry knock it out of the park with both of their performances respectively. I'm not even a diehard Transformer fan, and I absolutely loved loved this. So I can only imagine how much avid fans of the series adore this. It's just a damn shame this didn't perform well at the box office, because I would love more Transformers movies of this caliber. It's that good. Looming at number 8 is Nosferatu. Robert Eggers gave us a classic Universal monster movie in 2024, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. I dug the absolute hell out of this movie. Not only is this a great horror movie with effective tension and scares, it's also a beautifully shot film with some of the best cinematography in the game. Every single frame looks like a beautiful Gothic Victorian era painting. And if that wasn't enough, you have a stacked cast. From Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok to Lily Rose Depp giving a breakout performance to Willem Dafoe giving one of the best performances of his career. This is truly a monster movie you can only get once every 100 years. And I just gotta show off the coffin again. It's just so cool in that it's metallic and that it has, it has something inside of it. Another code, this one for Doctor Strange. Please enjoy. Free Fallin' at number 7 is The Fall Guy. David Leitch set out to make a movie that was a love letter to the incredibly, horribly overlooked profession of the stuntman and succeeded tenfold. This is definitely among one of my favorite Ryan Gosling movies, and I really came to care about his relationship with Emily Blunt's character. The action isn't too crazy, and obviously the stunt work is brilliant. It's an action rom-com set in the middle of the troubled production of a movie, and it's one I really enjoyed. I really need more from David Leitch. He has directed and produced some of my favorite action movies in recent memory, and Hobbs and Shaw, but there's always that one. Rolling around at the speed of sound at number 6 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I cannot begin to explain my admiration for these movies, but at this point, I just don't care. I enjoy them that much. Had you told me 5 years ago that Sonic the Hedgehog would be the king of video game movie adaptations, with the third film being the best one, I'd have called you crazy. But now, I wouldn't want it any other way. This continues the streak of being remarkably fun family action-adventure movies. The voice cast for Sonic and Friends continues to be perfect, and the addition of Keanu Reeves as Shadow gives this film emotional layers not yet seen in this film franchise. And of course, Jim Carrey is giving 210% in every scene he's in, especially considering he's playing two characters. Listen, perhaps these movies aren't 5-star material, but they're 5-star material in my heart, and that's more than good enough for me. And just like the Garfield bucket, the Sonic bucket is still incredibly cute too, except it does look like he's doing the popcorn trick. If you know, you know. Go ahead, stick your hand in there. There might be something in there. In fact, there is actually. Oh, it's a code for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Please enjoy. Quietly making its way into number 5 is A Quiet Place: Day One. I will admit, a prequel to A Quiet Place wasn't something I had much interest in, mainly because I found the opening to 2 to be that perfect prequel. However, they utilized the larger scaled nature of this film to its fullest. It's a conflict I genuinely find compelling, and the way Lupita Nyong'o's character goes about it is oddly beautiful. I definitely don't want them to run these movies into the ground, but they are 3 for 3 when it comes to being in my top 5 movies in their respective year. Reminder, these are horror movies. They are far and away my favorite genre of movies, but I enjoy these ones a whole heck of a lot. The dominant species at number 4 is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The Caesar trilogy of Planet of the Apes is one of my favorite trilogies ever. It is just so genuinely perfect from beginning to end. So I'll admit, I was hesitant to see how they would continue it without Caesar, but man, they surprised the hell out of me. I love Noah as our new lead ape, and Proximus Caesar was a fantastic villain. This is definitely the most adventurous of the Apes films yet. And of course, the visual effects are top of the frickin' line. This is the best way I think they could have continued the Planet of the Apes series, and I am more than excited to see what's next. It's just a shame it's almost guaranteed to not win the Best Visual Effects Oscar this year. For the 4th time in a row. Warming every single person's heart who saw this movie at number 3 is The Wild Robot. Waiter, there's some Pixar in my DreamWorks. What is there to say about this film other than wow? DreamWorks is really the most inconsistent animation studio out there, but that might oddly be a benefit to it. Leading a film like this to floor us with breathtaking visuals, a heartstring-tugging story, and an amazing voice cast. Lupita Nyong'o's great performance easily puts Roz the Robot among the other animated robot greats like WALL-E, Baymax, and the Iron Giant. I really wish DreamWorks could continue to be this consistent with their movies, because when they knock it out of the park, they knock it out of the frickin' park and then some. You knew this one was coming eventually, and I bet you thought it was number 1, but at number 2 is Deadpool and Wolverine. I know, it surprises me too that this wasn't number 1, but it'll make sense in a little bit. This is about as perfect as I could have asked for this dream team up. It's funny, bloody, horny, and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman kill it in every scene they're in as Wade and Logan. Ryan Reynolds also utilizes being in the MCU to its fullest, allowing Deadpool to do the craziest and funniest things. And they find the perfect loophole to bring Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine without lessening the impact of Logan, the movie. But what surprised me the most, though, was that this was the best note the 20th Century Fox Marvel Universe could go out on. Honestly, it had me getting teary-eyed for a movie universe that has far more bad movies than it does good ones, which is weird, actually. I don't know when Deadpool and Wolverine are going to return to the MCU, but when they do, I'm sure it's going to be great, and I'm there for it. Before we get to number 1, let me set the stage a little bit for you. When I pick my number 1 favorite movie of the year, I often pick one that resonates with me like no other. One that really describes the year I personally had. Whether it be a movie that put me in the Christmas spirit when I really wasn't feeling it, or a movie about a talking raccoon who has been cut open over and over and over. They are movies that just hit me on an emotional or a psychological level that the other movies just don't, in my opinion. And in 2024, there were plenty of moments where I myself felt as if I wasn't good enough. There was really only one movie that perfectly captured that anxiety. Because at number 1 is Inside Out 2. There aren't many Pixar films where I would advocate for a sequel for, but this was always one of them. This is, without a doubt, one of the best sequels Pixar has ever made. Easily the best since Toy Story 3. They build upon the absolutely brilliant concept of the first film wonderfully, and the new characters they introduce are just perfect. Especially my kindred spirit, Anxiety, the perfect personification of the emotion. And Maya Hawke should be given some kind of award for her performance. This is one of the most clever animated films. Perhaps I'm not a teenage girl who's trying to be on the biggest hockey team in her school, but I can still relate to feeling as if I'm not good enough. Any character, no matter what they look like, if the film is well written enough, you can find some common ground. And no, this is not a knock at the idea of representation in film. Far from it, actually. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's the opposite. I almost fully expected Deadpool and Wolverine to be my favorite film of 2024. And there were plenty of moments where I almost said screw it and made it number 1. But there wasn't anything about that film that felt truly relevant to my year. Which is why I have to give Pixar the crown. Inside Out 2 is my favorite film of 2024. I hope you all enjoyed this countdown, and I really hope I wasn't too melancholy at the end there. This year just kind of really hit me hard emotionally, and I thought, you know, it's a movie about emotions, so why not? Remember that surgery I mentioned at the end of my Nosferatu review? Yeah, it got postponed again because, what do you know? I have the freaking immune system of a dead at 35 kid from the 1800s. I realized I said that a while ago, but it's been so long, I forgot. If you're seeing this part, I have officially had surgery, luckily. So, there's that. But I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider hitting that like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified when my next video drops. Until next time, I'm Quentin Dunaway, hoping you will keep it cinematic.